So what's really going to happen is I'm going to kind of give an overview for the first few minutes, and then we're just going to kind of pass through. What you really have, before I even jump into that, I kind of want to start off with just kind of an overview, so this will make a little bit of sense. And what you really have is 4 companies that work very well together to kind of make up a team. I think it's that team that you're going to be relying on. First of all, you've got Ips, who actually finds you people and then kind of finds the team so that so you can be in South Africa and hope that everything works well. So I appreciate, you're always so gracious to us. Appreciate you including us.
Thank you.
Next door to our offices is an office over there which is called Close Track. Close Track, and by the way, understand that in this process, as you go to other cities, as you meet different people, you are not required to use any of us. What we really have is we have a full comprehensive package that's available to you. So what I don't want you to feel any pressure is that none of us care if you don't use us and you use one of the other guys. Collectively, it all works well together. So what we really have is, what you're going to really be interfaced with is 4 unique businesses. You've got Ips. Next door to us, you have Close Track. Close Track is a closing firm, and they are a law office. So if you need help setting up your LLCs, getting your tax IDs, your EINs, they can help you with all that front end work. Also, as you set up for closing, they can help you with that, because what you have to have in the U.S. to really protect yourself is a clean, insurable title. In fact, which is what he just walked in. This is Greg Ziskin. He is he's the partner and owner of Close Track. So we rely very heavily on Close Track, and so anything that you're going to make an investment in, we're going to know on the front end is going to be a clean, insurable title, so you don't have any problems on that end. You've got Bridge Capital. Bridge Capital is an alternative lender. We are not a bank. We are an alternative lender. And then you've got Burton Himes, who collectively are Rental Rewards, and they're the sourcer of the product, the rehab and the management of the product, and they are the provider of the product. One of the questions that we were talking about last night is, how do you guys differ from banks? We are a lender. We'd love to provide a lending solution for you, but we are not a bank. One of the big difference between our lending solution and a bank is we are an asset-based lender, where a bank is typically going to be a credit-based lender. So from an asset-based lender, we're looking at the property, we're looking at the team, and we're looking at the ability of this project to survive, whether the borrower can perform or not. Now, after we're comfortable with the asset, and which means we're not only going to have to be comfortable with just the asset, we're going to have to be comfortable with the quality of the rehab, the quality of the management, because the whole thing, to us, you may think you're investing in a single home. We think you're investing in a whole turnkey solution. So it's the whole product, it's the whole partnership. And so Bridge Capital, when we look at this, we underwrite the asset, and what you really find is that there's very few wholesalers, turnkey providers that we actually offer our financing to. So I don't want you guys to take offense. It's not that we don't want you to be solid credits and be able to perform, but we look way beyond your ability to write a check, and we're looking more to the fact that we hope you never have to. Okay, that's more important to us. So that is the difference between what we do as an asset-based underwriter and what a bank would do as a credit-based underwriter. Credit-based, hey, if you can write the check, they'll lend you the money. That's not really our approach. So big picture, you got 4 businesses that work very seamlessly together. None of us care if you use the other guy and don't use us, but collectively we think we come together and we make a pretty good team. So as you kind of, who are all these people and why are they shooting all this stuff at us? That's big picture what you're about to experience, and that doesn't really change as you move from market to market. So as you go from Atlanta to Oklahoma, it's still big picture, it's still team. The real challenge is, I don't think South Africa is any different than anywhere else in the world. You guys work really, really hard for your money, and what's been very frustrating lately is that your money does not work very hard for you. And so what's really happened is Everybody's trying to figure out how to generate an income stream that will outlive them, because right now it sure looks like we're going to have to work till we're about 3,000,006, right? So,
You did it?
you just did it. Oh. So, I get the privilege of kind of traveling around the country, and I get to have some version of this. We'll talk about what is your definition of retirement, what is your definition of this, and everyone's. I'll get some. There's always somebody in the room that says, "Well, I don't want to retire. I want to work forever. I don't want to provide for me. I want to provide for my grandkids." Okay, so if you really kind of boil it down, I think this is probably fair to say. If we just take a common denominator of all answers, if the question is, what is your definition of financial security? I think a reasonable, or some version of a reasonable answer is the ability to comfortably live off the earnings of my wealth without having to spend any portion of my principal. If your wealth generates enough money, then it will last in perpetuity and you'll never touch the principal. And so whatever your definition of safe is, that can't be way far off for it. We have found that, so as you start to invest, the investing world at first blush might be kind of complicated, but we found it not to be all that complicated. You got 3 different paths that you can generally go. The stock market. Problem with the stock market for most people in the last decade is that yes, you might hit one stock that has had success, has had an unbelievable performance, but if you look at the market as a whole, it hasn't really gone up very much. If you got in at exactly the right day and got out at exactly the right day, you might have had nice returns. But in general, the market hasn't really gone anywhere over the last decade. The problem is it's been very volatile. And so what happens is people don't really enjoy that volatility. You work really hard for your money. You don't really want the nauseating ride. You guys are experiencing that with currency right now. People just don't like volatility. They worked hard to do it the right way, set some money aside. They really want some stability in their investment portfolio. So we say it's not really a bull market, it's not really a bear market, but it's been more of a bungee market. And the bungee market is making people sick. The bond market, CD market, that's worse, right? Because you go around the world, the interest rates in the U.S. are the highest in the world right now, and they're basically theoretically zero or close enough to zero that it doesn't matter. So whether you can have $1 million worth of anything or $1 billion worth of anything, if you put it in at a zero interest rate, it makes you nothing, and therefore you're set up to have to live off of your principal, and that's really kind of a problem. So what has really happened over the last decade is alternative investments has really been what's come under focus. We break, for the sake of the conversation this morning, we're breaking alternative investments down into 2 groups. Gold, commodity, hedge funds, FX trading, all those kinds of things, we lump in the category of everything else. Good news is, make it real simple, we can't help you with everything else. We can help you with the first one, which is real estate. It's not shocking that you guys have flown halfway around the world to sit down at a real estate conference. 50% of the world's wealth is held in real estate. So it's not shocking that somewhere along the way you want to pay attention to real estate, as everybody does.
When you say real estate, you're talking about commercial as well as residential, not just...
Right, yeah. Real estate, whether it's a shopping center, apartment building, raw land. But when you look at wealth, concentration of wealth, family wealth, you really find that across the world, 50% of the world's wealth is held in real estate. So at some point, whether it's right for you or not is one conversation, but you're certainly aware that there's a lot of wealth held in real estate. So now it's a matter of kind of quantifying it. So the question really becomes, why invest in single-family rental homes? The truth is, the way I tell it is, single-family rental homes is kind of like the vanilla ice cream of real estate. Okay, these are single-family rental homes are not complicated. They offer safety of principal because, generally speaking, single-family homes are the most liquid of all real estate. And they have the potential of appreciation. At the end of the day, isn't that what we all want? And I'm going to tell you something interesting. Every house that you will see today on this tour will cost more to build than what you'll end up having to pay for it. So all of the houses today are still selling below what their replacement cost would be. So keep that in mind. And so I can't tell you what the future brings, but I can tell you is if you can buy it for below what you can build it for, and the world is continuing to grow, there is at some point the potential of appreciation. Also, the thing about single-family rental homes is they're stable and they offer long-term income streams. My mother lives in the same house that I was raised in for the last 54 years. Now what's interesting about it is my mom and dad bought this house in 1961 and they paid about $28,000 for it. I don't know what it would have rented for in 1961, but today that house is probably worth $150,000, maybe $175,000. Over the last 10 years, that house has been worth more than it is today, but it's also been worth less than it is today, and that house certainly would rent for a lot more money today than it would have rented 20 or 30 years ago. So if you really look at real estate and you look at it over a longer term period, real estate only goes one direction over the longer haul, and that is it is going to go up. And I think you guys can all relate to what the homes you grew up in as children may or may not do. Lastly, one of the old acronyms is to get wealthy using other people's money. The nice thing about single family homes is rents, putting a roof over your head, is one of the top two things that people provide for themselves. There's a lot of things they don't pay, but they're going to pay their car note and they're going to pay their rent because they need to get to work and they need to not sleep in the street. Okay, so as they work, one of the bills that they make as a priority to pay is this one. You have the ability to grow your wealth and grow your income stream based on somebody else's efforts. We've all raised families, and we've all had people that benefited from ours. Let's benefit off the efforts of somebody else's. With that being said, there's been a lot of change in the way real estate can be invested in. What you really have is kind of the old way, right? The old way to invest in real estate was you had your high net worth people. So like in the US, you have Rockefeller Center and Trump Towers and all those things. So you have that. So generally, what has been intimidating is investing in real estate is generally thought to be only for the wealthiest, because you had to have significant amounts of wealth to be able to buy these shopping centers, these massive tract of lands, these office parks, you know, those types of things. So the do-it-yourself, DIY is what stands for do-it-yourself, is generally where a lot of the single-family business took hold. And what you'd have is somebody would come home from work, they'd buy a house that was somewhere in a neighborhood they understood, they would kind of fix it up and kind of manage it themselves. Well, like for myself, at the end of the day, the last thing in the world I want to do is mess around with a rental house. It's just not interesting to me. So for the people that were not wealthy enough to own an own shopping center, and for the people that didn't want to buy a single family home and deal with it themselves, the only way to passively invest in real estate was through REITs. Okay, so you could go buy an exchange, and their business was to buy properties and to manage the properties. And they do a fine job. There's nothing wrong with that methodology. But what has changed is that REIT structure is very expensive. Okay, so the people that are aggregating the properties, managing and running and overseeing all that's not a cheap process. So what has really emerged is kind of this whole turnkey provider space which has not existed. A few years ago, as we came out of the housing bubble, Warren Buffett got on TV, and what he said was, if I was a young investor investing today, I would go buy some of these single family rental homes. The reason he said that is when we came out of our housing bubble, owning your own home, which used to be the American dream, wasn't so much the American dream anymore, because a lot of families took a lot of hits by buying too much house, and they really, that left a bad taste. So what really has happened over the last decade is America has kind of is shifting more towards a renter nation. So people want to live in rental homes. But no one has really set out as their mission to provide this stock. So providing stock for Americans who want to rent, and that's a pendulum that most people do not feel is going to really do much swinging back the other way, has really kind of emerged as a new business. Single-family rental homes, now that they're investments, they're commercial because we want to rent them, has really kind of emerged as an asset class. Before, people owned their own home, but no one ever really thought of it as an asset class for investment purposes. So what single-family, as the mindset towards these single-family homes have changed, what has also changed is the way that people can invest in them and their acceptance. So, and it's also been an entry point that has let the average investor be able to buy affordable real estate. So through that, the new industry that is involved is that of turnkey provider. A turnkey provider, and this is where, regardless of what you guys do, and I hope you guys have a lot of success, I really hope that if you don't take anything away from today's conversation or your whole trip, I hope you really get this. When we talk about turnkey providers, we make two distinctions. There's property flippers and there are turnkey providers. We, in the world of Bridge Capital, migrate towards the turnkey providers and we migrate away from the property flippers. There are people that can buy a house, do a minimal amount of work so that it looks good for a picture when you send it on the internet halfway around the world. That is so not where this game is being played. We migrate towards a turnkey provider. So here's what they do. Turnkey providers acquire property at a distressed price. There's any number of ways to do it. We don't really have a preference on the right way to do it, but the good turnkey providers know how to get property at good prices. The trick becomes they rehab the property in what we call a non-deferred maintenance way, okay? From your perspective, if the house has a good roof, has good hot water, and has good heating and air, then most of your problems are in the past. It's when people start to cut those corners, they end up with very unhappy tenant experiences, and unhappy tenant experience result in unhappy owner experiences. Okay, so and so the way that we do that is we're looking for the people that not only buy the houses, rehab the houses, but also have a vested stake in managing the house. Because if you know that you're going to be managing the house once the investor takes it, you tend not to cut those corners. So that's why we look at the quality of the turnkey provider. And as you start shopping around between houses and pricing and all this stuff, I would really challenge you to look at just kind of the whole team that you're making invested in. I hope you find us to be a good member of the team. If I talk much longer, I'm going to be completely out of my skill set. So what I'm really going to do is actually turn it over to people that know a heck of a lot more about properties than I do, people that know a lot more about closing than I do, and the people that know a lot more about underwriting than I do, because I now yield the floor to smarter people. Thanks, guys.
Hey guys, I'm going to deviate right here. Greg Ziskin had some family stuff that he is taking time out from today, and so I'm going to let Greg come in and talk just for a second before we go on, because I know he needs to go do some family fishing.
Thank you. Fishing. Okay, got a little bit of a cold. But
Great attorney, guys. Great attorney.
Thank you.
Real people person.
Harley Davidson Club.
It's really hard to follow, Scott. Very hard. The closing process over here is what I'll talk about. It's pretty straightforward. The biggest thing that we do, that Scott alluded to, is make sure that the title that you're getting to the property is clean. I don't know if there's title insurance, if that term means anything to you in South Africa. We give you an insurance policy that says that you own the property, that it's free and clear of any liens, unpaid mortgages, unpaid property taxes, claims that somebody else owns the property. And it's with you as long as you own the property, okay? The biggest protection in it I've come to realize over the years is the fraud protection. So fraud's a bigger issue now than it ever was. Somebody can forge a deed, put their name on it, say that we've had instances, there's something of a, I don't know, fad, I guess. People called sovereign citizens who make up papers and say that they own things when they don't.
We got plenty of them. We know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Just how people do with whole countries.
Large cap.
So that's really the biggest protection.
Can I just ask a question, because for us that's normal, for the normal guys, that's not something that we have in South Africa. The title of the property, if you could just explain, the debt on the title goes with the property, doesn't matter who owns it.
Okay.
If you can just explain it. We don't have that
Yeah.
in South Africa, we have an independent title for the property.
Sure.
So debt goes to the person that owns the property at that time. We-
Okay,
in this way,
doesn't
it's
follow the property?
Yes.
Okay, well, in America, the way it works is, if I buy a piece of property and I go to the bank and ask the bank for a loan, you've heard the term mortgage. We don't call it a mortgage in Tennessee, we call it a deed of trust, but it's the same thing. And once I take that mortgage loan out, it secures the bank's loan to me, meaning if I don't pay the bank back, then the bank gets to foreclose, okay? If and when I decide to sell the home and I don't pay that loan off, that lien, that deed of trust, that mortgage continues to encumber the property, okay? So, typically what happens when we see an unreleased mortgage is it just means that the bank got paid and they didn't file a satisfaction in the land records. So we end up having to call the bank, try to figure out why didn't you file the satisfaction or release, or call the guy who did the closing 5 years ago and see if he can send us the file so that we can look and make sure that it got paid off.
Greg, you can also tell, he does that on all our properties when we purchase it. We own the properties, me and Hans do, before we ever sell them. So that's already been done
Right.
before we ever sell them.
But you also get a title insurance,
Yes.
that's what
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
talking about.
Again,
Oh, yes.
Because-
Again.
Because
Cover yourself.
He does the
if
same
anybody
thing for
misses
us.
everything, that doesn't come to you.
So like one of our no-go lines is, so that the phrase that you'll hear, clean insurable titles, okay? If you've got a clean insurable title, that means he's done his job, and that means nobody else can come in and, or you have to worry about, getting on the wrong side of it. And that's a no. We would never fund you if he does not tell us it's a clean insurable title. It's a
So
no.
are you essentially saying if you didn't have a net worth issue with that, bought something, you could buy the property with debt?
With the mortgage, yeah.
Yeah, the classic scenario there is everybody wants to go down and do what Bert and Hans do. They know how to do it very well, but not everybody does. Is go down to the courthouse steps and buy something at auction.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's say they're not foreclosing the first mortgage; they're foreclosing the second mortgage. Okay. Well, that second mortgage holder has a good right to foreclose their lien, their mortgage. Okay, but when they do, whoever buys it is going to take it subject to that first mortgage. We have a first in time, first in right system. So if I buy it and I have a first mortgage and a second mortgage, that second mortgage is subject to the first. It's inferior to the first. So the foreclosure of the first, if there's a foreclosure of the first mortgage, will wipe out any subordinate and junior second mortgages. That's a better example. Can I give you a real world scenario? Did I confuse you?
Yeah.
I did confuse you?
Yeah, no, but I know what you mean, but I want you to
Follow.
explain it a bit better. So for me, it's important, we have first and second and third and fourth mortgages in South Africa as well. You can have those bonds, and obviously the first mortgage holder is always the primary one. And the other ones, once this guy got his money, then the rest get their money. But if they go into foreclosure in South Africa, everybody gets a portion of that, whether if they have a bond or there's any debts registered against the property. The liens normally in South Africa would just be building debt. That would be a lien. But then we have mortgages that you can register, and that's about it that you can register. And then you can give the property up or the real estate up for security also in South Africa. So you have those three avenues that can encumber a property. Further, there's nothing to that. Here, maybe I'll give you the instance that we got before. Mortgages that's not been settled and somebody missed it along the way. And then if you just buy it online, the normal estate agent won't even tell you about that. You understand? So if you go online, you buy that, it might have another 50,000 in the background that has not been paid. And the second thing, there might be attorney's fees that is registered as a lien over that as well. There might be building costs for renovations, that's still registered as lien according to the property. So all of those things is important. So we don't buy property like that. So unless that lien has been, that there's no liens against it, and we have clear title plus the insurance, then we'll buy that property. Because we don't want any backlash where somebody missed something in a different state, that we can then not be held accountable for that property. So that's
When those are sorted out or paid up, are they closed or do they stay on the property even though they're zero? Once a bond
Yes
or
and
whatever.
no. Sometimes you can find, nowadays we'll find these mortgages that were originated by some mortgage companies out of business, so you can't go back and get a release, okay? So that's where the title insurance comes into play. As long as we can make sure that we know, okay, this guy got paid, we don't know where the people are that can sign a release. The title insurance company will insure it, we show them what we found, they say go ahead, they'll insure it. So if there's a problem, if that mortgage holder comes up and tries to enforce their lien after you own it,
The insurance.
you're gonna turn it over to the insurance
So
company.
so the insurance buys you that clean.
Right. The insurance
And
company.
we have
will pay
that
off.
done before we ever sell you the house. So
Right.
if there's a problem, they come to my insurance first, and then they go.
Yeah.
"Oh,
But
no,
you'd
right."
have to continue paying it. You
Oh,
don't pay-
absolutely.
you don't
It's a
pay
one-time fee.
Until,
You
No,
pay
no, it's a one-time-
one-time fee up
one-time
front.
fee.
When you close, you'll pay it
One-time.
one time.
oh, okay, so
And then
It's not a
annual
year,
fee.
no.
No.
That's insurance on the tiles, and there's property insurance, and it's a whole different.
Okay.
And I don't wanna give you I mean, we do this so that there's no problems. Very rarely do we see these issues arise in day to day. I mean, we do a lot of, the heavy lifting comes when they're buying, and then we're gonna look at a search that's gonna go back 30 years, it's gonna have multiple foreclosures, and it's gonna have bankruptcy, it's gonna have judgments, old underlit. We're gonna deal with that on the front end, and if we can't, and we've had instances where we can't, then they're not gonna buy the home. So by the time it gets to you, the hard work's been done, and it's very seldom that we ever see a title insurance claim. I can't tell you, I wouldn't even put it at once a year. They happen, but they're very seldom.
And that's got no impact on you because we get the title.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, right.
Well, me and Hans have been doing business together here since 1994, and we've had one title claim over thousands of houses. But the minimal amounts you pay for that title insurance up front and the peace of mind is well worth paying that. Well, if you get a mortgage, you don't have a choice. And I'd also say, besides the mortgage lender who has insurance, pay the extra 50 or whatever it is dollars for your owner's insurance also, because that covers you. Because most times when you just get the mortgage insurance, it covers the mortgage holder with the title insurance. Pay the extra 50 or $75, whatever it happens to be, and add yourself on there too. So then you can get your money out.
That policy stays with you
It's yours forever.
forever. You pay it one
You
time,
sell
it, you
and
pay it.
and if you have a loan, pay it off. A
Until
loan,
you sell it or not.
until you sell it,
Yeah.
But then the next person will buy
and
title
then you're not
insurance.
worried about it. Once you sold it, you're done. They can never come back on you. And we're really not trying to scare you. Really, I mean, this is very common practice here. The thing is, like, if you use us as a lender, you're gonna have to do it because the same things that we use to protect ourselves also protect you. But what we don't know is all the decisions that you might make if you decide to invest. This is something that we do, it's important, it makes a difference, and it's not something that you should, if you do business, if you invest in one of the houses you see today, you shouldn't worry about it. But it's also not fair to tell you some of the things that make our market unique, and it's taken care of. I wouldn't let it cause pause, but it's when you go with that whole turnkey solution, it's all handled. And so we've probably done 2,000 or 3,000 houses as a lending company. We've been in business about 7 years. We've never had a title issue. Now, there's been a few on the front end, like where they've tried to buy something and we were prepared to fund. So we didn't fund because we couldn't get the clean title. But post somebody actually acquiring, we've never had it. We ourselves have never had a title issue.
And when we had our title issue, we had title insurance, it's just like if you had a fire, we were covered, so you're not out of any money. You will never have that situation happen with y'all because it's covered before it gets there.
But just to make clear, it's a non-issue. It's absolutely non-issue. In this environment, we protect it with it. But outside of that environment, that is a real threat to buying property.
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot of people, like you mentioned, the auctions, on the online auctions, the courthouse auctions. I got a call yesterday from a lawyer who said, I'm gonna go down to the steps and try to buy this house. Is there anything I need to know? Should I be real estate worker? Yeah, there's a lot you need to know. Because you don't know really what you're buying until you pull a title search and you know that you've gotten something that's insurable.
But on these auctions, you can buy property surely subject to you doing that search and all the rest of it.
Well, the thing about it is, and Hans will speak about this, there's 750 foreclosures a month in Shelby County. And, well, Hans, this is a good time, just.
Right here, well, you want me to go over this real quick?
Yeah, this is a good time.
You want-
Go
Go ahead.
Well, basically, what we do here is, right here, this is the foreclosure sale scheduled for Friday, next week. Every sheet is one house, okay? A lot of these will get called out, they'll file bankruptcy, or they'll make terms with the bank, something will happen, the rest will go. And what we do is just, I just wanted to, these are actual, I'm gonna need these back, but these are actual, what we use to, these are all different properties. And this is what we look at, the house, how many bedrooms, baths it has. On top, we do, we look at the taxes and arrears. Like we said before, taxes aren't paid, they go with the property, they don't go with the person. We get an estimate on what Zillow says it's worth, what the rent's gonna be, what taxes
So
are.
if you're in debt on your bond and that house gets foreclosed, your debt's wiped out.
Yes.
Yes.
If you're the second mortgage, it's gone. If it's third mortgage, it's gone. Yeah.
Except for, the exception is you have what we call an IRS lien or a state of Tennessee lien. They usually have 120 days right of redemption. Okay, and then we deal with that on our end. We won't sell those until that right is expired. On the second page, you'll see the comps. We do comparables of other houses, other properties in those neighborhoods. And so we have an idea what the house is worth. So we go in there, we know what we're buying. And then the last page is that legal. We go through and we read the legal, and we find out on there, usually they usually give you if it's a second or first mortgage,
But they don't have to.
they don't have to. So we have to do some work. We have to go online. We're fortunate enough to go online. We can check the instrument number. The instrument numbers, Greg said before, we can say time and
First in time, first in right.
first time. If a lien was recorded before this one was, it's a superior lien. This would be a subordinate lien. In other words, I got to figure out is this a second mortgage or a third mortgage. And if it's not, we're good to go. If it is, then what's the first mortgage payoff? Because if we buy the second, we have a right to buy out the first, and can we still make
But
money?
it adds to the price of it.
And it adds to the price. So you got to make sure you're going in there. It's just not that easy.
And there are other things that you have to also watch out for. It might have an address on there, but if the address is different than the legal description, which we have what's called a meets and bounds system here telling you exactly where a property is located at. If the address and the legal description don't happen to be the same thing, which has happened, you bought where the legal description is, not where the address is. So you have to match the legal description, because I've seen them say the house was in Germantown, which is a very high end here, but the actual legal description was a house they own in South Memphis. So guess what? The house that you thought you were buying in Germantown for $50,000, it's worth $250,000, is actually a house in South Memphis that's worth $20,000. So there are so many intricacies to this. If you're not a professional doing this and you haven't put your time in doing this, it is a good place to get burned. And then you have to be able to look at the house from the outside, because 80% of the time you can't get in. and make a judgment on what it's gonna take to fix that house.
You have to
Without
make an
ever getting
estimate.
inside that house.
You have to make an estimate, well, how it looks on the outside is what's gonna be inside. And you gotta have a good judgment call, without the square footage, how much it's gonna cost to renovate, take a look at the roof, look at the, outside, how much is it brick, is it gonna be, we're gonna vinyl side, we're gonna wrap it, cover it all up, we'll go over that later today when we show you the house and the rehab process. But you gotta be able to make those decisions. And then at the courthouse, you gotta have your money right then and there. You don't go, I can go up. Right now, you gotta have your money there, and once you get your money, you're done. It's buyer beware. So you
And
better have that.
then it'll take you from 1 day to 6 weeks to get your deed before you can start working on it.
Yeah, but I'll say this, by the time you guys are looking at a house, it's like on the website and stuff, all that's already been done.
That's how
Yeah, I mean,
we
it's-
get the
it's-
house.
that's kind of, that,
That really-
that's already been done kind of behind the scenes, so those really aren't, that's not really.
This is just the
This
foreclosure
is-
process.
Y'all, someone asked last night, I was talking about how we get houses. We have a full-time person that does nothing but research houses. That's all they do, is all this.
And then this is the result of the research,
And then,
so Bert and I
if
have to.
I
take
look
some
at
out of
it and I can't figure it out, then I call Greg and say, Greg, can you give me an answer? I can't figure this one out. And so, you know, there's several things you have to be aware of when you're looking at it. Is it a 30-year mortgage? Is it an open-end, like equity line of trust? A lot of people have equity lines of trust. And there's just so
Or
many
does
things.
the loan and cover more than one property?
Mhm. Or are there two different people on the mortgage with 50% interest and only one of them's covered? There's just a million different things you have to look at.
We also get property, this is just foreclosure, we also get property, we're well known in the city, the banks call us up and ask us, hey, we got this property, are you interested? We had to take it back. They've already done the foreclosure process, they call us up, we usually get first hit
And
at it.
basically, it comes down to, do you want to do real estate as an investment, or do you want to do real estate as a business? Because what we do is a business, and what you do is an investment. And so, that's generally.
How do you work out your resale value? Do you base it on a certain?
Base it on the
value?
asset.
Okay.
It's a
Not
yield
on your
base.
purchase
Yield.
price at all,
No.
whatever, it's your end result. You say, this area, this kind of property, this is the rand value of.
Yeah, this is the income stream it'll generate.
And your income would be the difference between what you can buy it for, renovate it, and then resell it for.
Yes.
Absolutely.
What is that, that's a very valid question that he's asking there, because sometimes we get the question in South Africa, but if they buy it for 50,000 and they have to clean the title and all of that stuff and they go through it and then they revamp it, they spend another 15,000 on revamp and then they sell it, what is the normal markup that you would put it? Is it also between a 10 to 15% or what is that markup?
Basically, you have to understand, especially even after the rehab, the overhead on the back end.
Yeah, yeah.
The amount, the cost for the research and everything else. And I'll just tell you, general rule of thumb, we make about 10 grand a house. That's generally what we make.
But that isn't how you calculate your resale
No.
price. You
But
don't,
no,
you don't
because
say
how we-
purchase plus,
No.
here's my resale price.
We,
You say
we back
the area
into it the
goes.
other way.
We back
It's,
into it.
here's the
Yeah.
price, here's what it'll yield you,
Yeah.
this is what it's gonna take to rehab the
Yeah.
house, this is what our profit margin is.
Is it worth doing or not?
So we can buy it for up to this price, and if it goes over that price, we can't buy it
Now,
anymore.
if I buy a real killer deal, I'm gonna make a lot more money.
Yeah.
If I buy one that's not so good deal, I'm gonna make a little less money.
And see, when you're buying sight unseen, sometimes you get bit, you know? And it just comes from years of looking at them and everything, you know. There was a house several years ago me and Hans were looking at, and looked outside, looked pristine, just pristine. Looked like it had, you know, refinished hardwood floors, and I was talking with Hans, I was looking at it, I said, something just doesn't look right about this floor. I said, the house looks great, but something's just not right. And we got in the house and finished on the floor just like this right here. Stepped on that floor and dropped all the way down to my knee. The termites had eaten the wood floor out all the way up to right underneath the varnish. That's very rare here. And we give you a termite letter too, just to make it clear. We have a termite inspection that you will get for every house. But if someone hadn't got inside that house, you would have thought there had been very little money to spend. where you would actually have to replace the floor joists, the hardwood floors.
I'll give you another example. We bought a house, we thought it was a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house. We kind of run around looking at the house, and Bert goes, "Where's the kitchen?" I said, "Well, it's around here somewhere." There was no kitchen. They turned the kitchen into a bedroom. And the kitchen was brought outside, you know, they
Had it on
made
a
a boarding
carport.
house. They made a boarding house out of the place. So, you know, but that's when you don't get to look inside, you know, those are,
Can I just go back to your side?
Sure.
And then possibly we can release you. Family duties. You've covered basically the liens and transferring and getting the properties in and transferring to the new owner's name and then. Are you involved in any other side of the business, the tax side, the other side, is there a different person?
Yeah, the attorneys don't normally handle that. The tax side is CPAs, which is accountants.
We're gonna get to see someone like that, okay? Because my question was gonna be, and you but maybe say it's the wrong person to discuss it. I've heard a lot about the American tax system being an outsider, non-resident or non-whatever, and the concerns around that are something I wanna just cover. Not today, not yet.
Not yet.
Right,
That's
okay.
better direct, there's better directed to a tax person, but the other side of what we do is as a settlement provider. So we take in the funds that you're gonna wire funds into us. We're gonna give you a settlement statement, which is just a ledger, a spreadsheet of the expenses associated with the purchase, purchase price, closing costs, if there's a loan involved. The lender's fees are gonna be on there, the prepaid items, you're gonna have to fund an escrow account for taxes, property taxes, and homeowners insurance. That's all gonna be included in your monthly mortgage payment if you do decide to go the lending route. All that's itemized for you. It's shown on something we call it the HUD-1 here. It's a settlement statement. It's a spreadsheet showing you all the expenses associated with the acquisition. I can talk about LLCs if you'd like me to. We form a lot of LLCs. Everybody seems, they're very popular as a vehicle to own the real estate. Their LLC stands for Limited Liability Company. That means any liabilities that outside of a mortgage loan or something that you take on personally, you're not responsible for. I mean, the liability is left to the company, not to the owners of the company. So they're very popular vehicles for owning real estate because people are concerned that something's going to happen. There's going to be a lawsuit. Lawsuits are, I like to say that people from overseas come over to the United States and think that we have a bottle of whiskey in one hand and a shotgun in the other, and so they're fearful that something terrible is going to happen at the house. Of course, you got your insurance, your liability coverage under your insurance policy is always going to be your first line of defense, but sort of as a belts and suspenders approach, to borrow one of Scott's phrases, the liability, the limited liability company goes along nicely with that. So
If you purchase 1, 2, then 3, and you build up a portfolio, and you put them all under the same LLC, and you have something go bad
Yep.
with one of the properties, your limited liability is for the whole company, so that one property could damage the other assets
and the assets of the
of
company
the
will
company.
be subject
Yeah, it won't come to
potentially.
you, but you could essentially lose your whole LLC profit.
Well, guys, I've had an LLC, and it's called Shelby Holdings. We've had one called Jim Investments, and we've had hundreds of houses under the same LLC. And with our insurance, we carry $1 million worth of liability. With our, you pay for it, the insurance, part of the insurance, it goes per each house.
Per
We-
each
And, you know, it covers the property and $1 million worth of liability. If you carry the insurance, I'd put all of them, or at least a big number, under one LLC if I could, because it's $300 per LLC per year, just to keep the LLC active in the
Correct.
state. So I don't think, if you carry the liability insurance, and we furnish that and get a very good price for it.
But here's my, I don't disagree, it's not for me to agree or disagree with him on this subject. You're asking questions, I have that conversation with somebody. The question that you're asking, I answer probably 2 or 3 times a month.
Comes up a lot, actually.
It comes up a lot. And over the years, my test for that is, it's what makes you sleep well at night, okay? And so you got 2 or 3, a basket of properties in LLC 1, okay? You're correct. What, $1 million of liability insurance will take you a long way, and maybe all you ever need. You can buy 2 or 3 million, 5 million, whatever you want to buy. It's what makes you sleep well at night. What you're doing the LLC for is that uninsured amount, okay? If something catastrophic happens in one of these houses, will $1 million be enough? Will $5 million be enough? You just wanted to say, I don't care, I don't want to have to worry about it. I'm going to pay the $300 a year for the LLC because it gives me that additional protection and it makes me sleep better at night. I have clients who have hundreds of homes in one entity. I have clients that have hundreds of homes in their name, okay? I think they're playing with fire, but that's they can choose their own adventure. And then I have clients who put one house in one LLC and form another.
But that's actually pretty rare. I mean,
is.
so in terms, in terms
Most of
of
the insurance would be cheaper than an LLC.
in terms of your risk profile, how many you get, if you're gonna get 5 houses, I would tell you, you don't want 5 houses and 5 LLCs. If you think that you may wanna have 60 houses in the US and you say, look, I wanna put 15 houses in an LLC and then I'll open up another one, we do see people that do that. I don't, we've not seen anybody that does one LLC per house. That's just too much work. But if you said, hey, I do want to have some sort of batching, that happens.
Well, guys, I'll just tell you, me and Hans have been doing this. I've been doing it in Memphis since 1986. Me and Hans have been together since '94. And through thousands of houses, we've had one claim that paid out $8,000 and some odd dollars. One.
And the insurance companies took it
The
out.
insurance just paid it off.
We didn't,
Yeah.
never in fact impact our business at all.
What would $1 million insurance cost?
Well, it comes with the policy, and we'll go
You get it for
through that
free
in
with
the
the
house.
policy.
It comes
But
in
for-
with
for
the
year
house.
one.
Therefore,
You pay it,
every
the
year you pay
insurance,
property
when we
insurance.
get here, the insurance is figured into the payment you're gonna make with the house.
Okay.
And the liability is a portion of that insurance.
So then this stays for probably forever,
As long as you pay it every
Remember
year.
last
How
time?
much you pay every year then?
It depends on the price of the house.
Okay,
The liability portion is like $76 a year.
okay. Oh,
Remember we were talking last night about escrow?
yeah.
Okay, so, all right, so title insurance that he was talking
Should
about
we
earlier.
run through, maybe we done here then? That's what, you didn't discuss escrow with Terry. Chris and I went through some.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna say that for Andre, I was just kind of,
Okay.
I was just kind of referencing. So the title insurance that we were talking about earlier, you pay that one time and you're done forever. The property insurance gets paid every year. And and the money that goes into, part of the money that goes into the escrow, that's how you keep paying it.
Okay, great.
But it's not an additional fee, it's all one fee.
Right, and Andre will get into that, so I'm gonna stay out of that, but.
Super.
So, yeah, we do the title work, we form a lot of LLCs, we did the settlement services, so you're gonna send the money to us by a wire. And that's, in a nutshell, that's what we do.
Are we getting in lieu of, from IPS side, having this 3-man team on this side? Are you basically negotiate like a certain discount structure because of this close network environment? So,
Yeah.
so essentially when we buy, we get the package, which will be cheaper than if we had to go ourselves and go and get
Oh,
you
absolutely.
and you put it together, so that's the whole.
That's
We-
he, not us, yeah, that's it.
We furnish the insurance, we package you, as long as we're your management company, we package you with 700-800 other houses, so we
Yeah.
get a very good rate on our insurance.
You put a lot of work through this company, so you get a better
It's a
price.
there's a $200 difference. If I have one house, there can be up to a $200 difference between the insurance price that they get and what I can buy for myself.
And
And that you can buy also cheaper type of insurance that has deductibles or shortfall payments and stuff like that. So there's all different types of stuff that you can choose. But the problem is when the proverbial tacky hits the top, we need to make sure that when the house burns down and that's part of a group policy, it gets paid out quicker because the insurance company look differently at it. They don't look for a reason not to pay it out.
we do so much business, we're actually able to write the insurance and the deck pages out of our office. So So we just send it over to Greg, and we go from there. Stacy takes care of that and gets it to your girls. So it's, generally what we have is you got $1,000 deductible, got $1 million worth of liability coverage.
And then the properties, if it burns to the ground, then it's called replacement costs, to replace it.
What about liability in terms of someone walking in and falling over? And
That's what the
breaking?
liability
That's
portion.
the liability covers.
That's
all
all
part
of
of
it,
it.
yes.
So your tenant could be hurt in there or their guest or whatever, it's all covered.
Absolutely. The only thing we're not covered for is war or earthquake.
Or flood.
And,
Flood. And you gotta get special insurance for flood, but in the United States, they have what's called a flood map, he does a flood cert. That, you don't do. But
Matt,
anyway, we do because
We
we,
do.
okay.
We do the flood cert, we set the loan up, so if you had, first of all, in Memphis, you're not gonna be in a floodplain, but other markets, if you're in a floodplain, then we require flood insurance. But when we take the loan in, one of the things that you pay when you close, help me, explain this.
So when
There's
you
an
take,
80,
if you
explain.
take a mortgage with us, there's a $91 fee at close that Magna, who services our loan, charges. And they, once a year, they do a search of the floodplains, because the floodplains change over time. So they make sure that you're not in a flood zone. If you're in a flood zone, then you'll be notified and you'll be required to put flood insurance on. So every single year, they check and make sure, are you in any danger of being in a flood
And
zone?
what it is the 100-year floodplain and the 500-year floodplain.
Yeah.
And as long as you're not in the 100-year floodplain, you're okay.
And so there's $91 fee that you pay at
For title.
close, kind of like the title insurance. It's not a fee that we charge, it goes actually to a company. And every year, what you pay for, it's a one-time deal, but for the life of the loan, so it doesn't really protect you, it really protects the lender. So for the life of the loan, they're constantly monitoring the floodplain. If it should shift and you need flood insurance, then we would be notified, and we would notify you, and we would notify your property manager.
But we've
Is
done
flood
that on the
insurance
front
expensive
end.
insurance?
Yes, it is expensive insurance.
No, well,
Flood is expensive
Yeah, but-
insurance for what you get.
In relation to what we do for property casualty,
Yeah,
yes. it's
but
gonna
the
cost
thing
more.
about it is we don't have a single house in Memphis in a floodplain.
But we don't buy houses in floodplains. just-
Well, that's not true. We do.
They're
We
not-
figure in
we
the
don't
cost
buy
of,
them.
we figure
You might buy
in,
them, but we don't buy
well,
them.
but if you do, we figure in the extra cost of insurance into the yield
Yeah.
and cover that in the yield. So, but we don't have any.
but you do make the purchaser aware of it.
Oh,
Yes,
absolutely.
absolutely.
It is a
You have to.
floodplain.
That'll be-
And the lender will tell you also.
And that's insurance is required. And it's like, when was it, 5-7 years ago? Nashville, Tennessee got 16 inches of rain in a half a day. And things that had never been flooded and may not ever be flooded again got flooded. But those people didn't have flood insurance. So, I mean, you can have strange events happen.
That wouldn't have changed the floodplain though.
Well, but you know what they are if it did now.
Yeah.
You know,
We have the same thing back home with regards to flood
right.
areas.
Because, all they're doing is the insurance company is playing the probabilities.
Yeah.
And here, we think we're gonna have a claim, here, we don't think we're gonna have a claim.
Correct. Is there any insurance on the LLC itself for any claim?
No, because there's no way that you don't do other business through
Correct, if you're
LLC.
only doing property.
Only do property,
there's
the
no
property, every
insurance.
property has $1 million on
Yeah.
it.
Well, you're
That's
in-
what it do for us, yeah.
Whatever, like, if you buy an LLC, you buy the property through the LLC, the insurance is actually to the LLC.
Yes.
You own the LLC, you don't own the property, you own the LLC which owns the property.
But there's no claim that you could possibly get into an LLC unless it comes through a property issue. That's what I'm asking.
Unless you do other business through it.
Yes.
Or you do fraud or something.
Oh,
Yeah,
fraud.
yeah. Money laundering or,
Mhm.
no, got it. Super.
Okay.
All right.
Just one other thing, what about acts of God? And in terms of insurance?
That's what
Is
insurance,
it-
well, depending on what the act of God is, if it's flooding,
A lightning bolt?
that'll
That's,
cover it.
that's covered.
Is that-
Tornado covered.
Wind damage.
Covered.
Okay.
It's just a
You got
flood.
$1,000
Just a flood.
deductible,
So earthquake is not covered
or unless you want it, and it's
Okay.
expensive.
It's a separate
and
policy.
war is not covered.
War's not covered. Acts of terrorism aren't covered.
acts of war are specific exclusions.
Yeah.
So acts of terrorism are not they're different. They're the same as war.
Same thing.
Okay. So don't buy a house next to a I don't know.
Border with a foreign country.
A public place that may be a target for a bombing, like I suppose McDonald's or
Well, Memphis, you're gonna be okay there.
Planet Hollywood, because that was blown up in Cape Town. Planet Hollywood.
And I'm not sure how the South African survey system is, but we have a meets and bounds system, so you basically know just exactly what you're buying. I
It's
mean,
the
there-
survey system that we have.
In fact, this system in Shelby County, so nobody even requires a survey anymore. It's, the lenders don't even require a survey.
Lenders don't require them. We don't sell a lot of surveys in Shelby County unless you're dealing with, undeveloped land, just raw land, or in commercial transactions. You know, if we were gonna do a closing on this building, the lender would most certainly require it.
I would not buy it. I buy a lot
Survey.
of property, and in Shelby County, I would not buy a survey.
For single family home.
And your business is not simply single family homes, it's any legal matter, or just are you specializing in property or real estate?
Any type of real estate.
We do a lot of real estate closings, commercial, residential alike. Close Track is the title company, that's where we do the real estate transactions from. And then we have a law firm that's kind of closely related to that called, if you looked on the door over there, Hudson Ziskin. So legal work, courtroom matters, things like that, we handle through the law firm. Closing transactions, we handle through the title company.
While you're here,
Simple.
is it difficult to get a notary in South Africa?
Very much.
Would you touch on that? What you can?
That's one of the advantages of doing an LLC, because it facilitates the closing process, because, well, can we just do a power of attorney and appoint somebody over here to sign? Power of attorney to be enforceable has to be notarized as well. So if you form an LLC, we're gonna put the real estate in the LLC. The deed from their company is gonna be show that LLC is the owner. Is that clear when I say that? Okay. So what we would then do is prepare an LLC resolution where the members sign it, or whoever has authority over the LLC signs it, and appoints somebody over here.
Yeah, but you guys
Sign.
don't do that every time. You guys elect to do that sometimes, but the majority of cases that I found, so I've worked a lot with the South Africans, I find you guys are very detail oriented and you prefer to read every single line yourself and know exactly. Am I describing a South African you know? So most of the South Africans
He's
who
not even
work.
asking.
He was last night.
But guys, you can still read every single line.
Yeah,
That, you would have all the documentation that would come out of Greg's office, but there would just be a resolution.
Yeah.
So you didn't have to go somewhere, pay
Right,
to
yeah.
have a notary done.
yeah, you can choose to have it either way.
You send
You guys
him,
can
and he would
just,
want the documentation that I've reviewed this document. It's okay for you to have my person sign
That's
it
just
for
in
the
extreme,
LLC.
extreme cases where we have like farmers sitting on a farm they can't get
Right.
to, like a lot of the Natal farmers that buy from us.
Yeah, we've had people had to get on airplanes to go
Yeah.
see notaries.
Right.
Yes.
yeah.
So the notaries, normally in the big cities we have notaries, like Durban we have a notary that you can go to. We have notaries in every area that you can just go to that specific notary, and we pay for that service anyway, for them to notarize your document. So normally we will get the full thing notarized as per this. It's just in extreme cases where the client is, say, in Tanzania or somewhere, and we can't get a notary to him, then we'll let him sign a surety, goes to the embassy, just get a stamp there, and we'll send it through to them, and they sign all the documents. But you
Yeah,
still have to
you
read
still
them,
get- you get a
still have
stamp.
to read them, you still have to sign them.
Yeah, you
But
guys
you
will
don't
get a
have to
copy of
have
them,
it
and we
notarized.
want your signed copy as well. There'll basically be two sets of copies. There'll be yours that you signed and you read and signed, and then there'll be a duplicate copy that was notarized here by a person who signed on your behalf of the United States.
Yeah, and the reason we do it that way is because we don't want just some, stranger to the transaction coming and going, all right, I'm here to sign stuff. We want to see a set of documents that you've seen, put your signature on, even though it may not be notarized. We know that you've signed it, and we have a set of that copy, those copies of those documents signed that we can keep, and then in turn have a set that are signed by the third party that you authorize, that's kept as well. Those documents would be.
That's a typical.
I think that, I was reading about this not too long ago, but I think we're gonna get to the point here in the not too distant future where, they're gonna make, notarization easier.
Yeah.
Because the prevalence of people from overseas coming here to buy things is so popular that there's an article I was reading about it. So we can't do a Skype notary right now. You have to have a personal appearance. Yeah, but I think that'll change.
But our notaries are
somewhere along
different.
the
Yeah,
line.
the notaries are like commissioners of oaths in South Africa. It's a more open thing. There's much more available of them. But in South Africa, it's High Court maintained and managed. So everything that you sign at a notary is an extra qualification, extra certification that you have to have in South Africa. So it's a High Court managed. So it's higher than government. Because our highest authority is the High Court in South Africa. It's higher than the government authority. So what theirs is parallel to our Commissioner of Oaths, but they still require, because it says notary, and they just require it. So we have to always look for that, and then there's a pistol part as well that you normally have to do for, if you buy commercial property, you have to do the pistol as well, which has to be signed by the High Court. So you sign the contract, it has to go to High Court, they wrap it and seal it to come overseas, but with residential property, that's not necessary. So that's in addition to that, that is something that they don't do, they don't have here. We have that in South Africa to just make sure that it's like signing a document at the embassy, they verify it. It's actually better than that.
What else? How long are you here for?
Till tomorrow.
Tomorrow. In Memphis, yeah.
In Memphis, then Oklahoma, and then
Okay. You know, barbecue yet?
not yet.
Not yet.
Tonight,
Okay.
tonight I understand we're doing something similar. Have as much meat as we want.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
If you ever have a question, Yako has my email address, so
Super.
feel free to hit me with an email or phone call, whatever you like.
Who's
Yeah.
doing, well, when we do the LLC through your lady Melanie or whatever, Sonia,
So,
who does that here in this?
our LLCs is done by our corporate attorney, John Herbert.
Okay,
Okay, so he does all the LLCs that we do.
who's in Atlanta?
He's at Atlanta based, and he does full service things similar to what they do. Because we run it one service provider for the postage, all the postage items, the bank accounts, the bank cards, everything. We have special private boxes for that, so that we can make sure that the post is handled properly. We courier that twice a month over, and at one central point for us to enter in. But as a backup, we do have the LLCs. We've done a few in Memphis before, but it's a bit of an administration nightmare to have it at different places. But they do it for some of the other clients that doesn't have a full service brokerage like us. They have they do it for different clients as well. Because we do the tax opinions on the LLCs that we set up as well, to make sure that it's set up correctly. Especially for the bank accounts, because we're from South Africa, they love closing our bank accounts because of the money brought in. You've experienced that before.
That's where you said
Maybe we'll
that if you go down to zero, that's close your account.
Yeah. 3 months at zero, and it closed.
Or non-activity?
No, yeah, obviously not. But just this bank fee going through every month, and there's money for it to go through, and money getting paid into it, just it's useless having a bank account with no money. So they close it. That's it.
Greg, thank
Sounds
you
like
for
a
your
good
time.
option.
Thank you for being here on a Saturday.
Well,
Really
nice to
appreciate
talk to you.
it.
Anytime.
Good. Enjoy your family.
Enjoy the rest of your
I
stuff.
hope it all gets good.
Thank you, Greg.
Thanks,
Thank
good.
you.
Appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Cheers, Greg.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Thanks. Nice to meet you.
Much again.
Thanks. Good to see you. Thank you.
All right, guys, we get to see the face up here. You've been looking at it for a
5
while.
minutes.
Can we have a toilet break?
Oh, absolutely. Hey, guys, I'm gonna tell you a little about me. You've been looking at my ugly face for long enough. I'm sure y'all have read that. This is Hans. Hans was one of my first clients.
Quite a good photo.
Man, it's amazing what they catch these things, especially on mine. And anyway, Hans, we met several years ago, and Hans was one of my first clients. And we got to doing business together, and he liked it so well. And we say we're brothers from different mothers. We've been partners since 1994. We've been doing this since about 1992. And our partnership together has done very well. And he was in the corporate world. He worked for Sedgwick James, which became Marsh. It's a large insurance company. And met him through happenstance. I've always been in real estate, love real estate. And Hans came into the office I was at one day, didn't buy anything, but then we called and became partners. He bought some, and he said he couldn't do any more, and so we formed a partnership. And while he was at the corporate world, he always was talking about the corporate security. And I was always preaching to him that security is an illusion. Basically, your security is what you can produce yourself. Well, how long have we been in business? About 5 years, 4 years?
4 years.
One day they come into his whole department and go, we've outsourced your whole department. You're done. You're done. Well, at the time,
After 13 years with the company.
yeah, well, now it's the best, he'll tell you it's the best thing that ever happened to me. It was scary at the time because when he came on board with me full time is when we took off. And to tell you just a little about me, I love real estate. I was raised in an age before all the computer games. And how many of y'all know Monopoly? I love Monopoly. I love real estate. I feel like I'm playing Monopoly today. That's what I do. When I was 17 years old, my father made a statement that really had more effect on me at the time than he knew. We were driving in the town I grew up in, and we were driving down the road. And he says, well, you know, 20 years ago, I could have bought this land for $7 an acre. And your Uncle Jimmy talked me out of it. He says, now that same land's selling for $1,000 an acre. He said, if I could do it over again, I'd borrow every nickel I could borrow to buy real estate. And that stuck with me for a long period of time. But anyway, that's where I love real estate. I love the people I get to meet. I love the people it takes to get to. I love redoing the houses. I love helping other people be successful. It has let me and Hans do more in life than either one of us ever thought we would be.